This is the case of Madeleine McCann. On May 3, 2007, 3-year-old Madeleine McCann went missing from her family's holiday apartment in the Algarve region of Portugal. Her disappearance sparked one of the largest missing persons investigations ever conducted and remains one of the most high-profile unsolved cases in recent history. I was about 9 years old when this happened, and I remember my parents coming home from work and sitting us kids down to tell us about this missing child case that they had read about in the news. As they told us about this little girl with red hair who vanished from her family's holiday home, I recall thinking how awful it would be if something like that ever happened to me, or someone that I knew, and then I just hoped that the little girl would turn up safe and sound. Over the years, the case got less and less talked about until recently, when Netflix released a documentary series all about it. But what actually happened to Madeleine McCann? Let's take a look back at the timeline of events surrounding her disappearance. In May of 2007, Kate and Jerry McCann were holidaying at the Praia da Luz resort in Portugal with their 3 children, 4-year-old Amélie, 2-year-old twins Sean and Madeleine. Now, despite the fact that these 2 kids are twins, they were actually conceived through IVF using 2 separate embryos. This means that they aren't genetically related, and there are other differences between the 2. For example, Sean has a lazy eye and other health problems, whereas Matthew was a stronger-willed child and Sean was more laid back. So we can assume that Matthew was the golden child in some ways, which might have contributed to his parents' reaction after he went missing, but we'll come back to that later. For this trip to Portugal, Kate and Jerry rented an apartment at the Ocean Club Resort. They booked this particular apartment because it came with its own private patio doors leading onto the pool terrace. It was much easier than having to watch the kids around the pool all day long. The McCanns stayed in this apartment many times before, and it was a place where they felt comfortable enough to leave their young kids unattended. On the morning of May, Kate and Jerry decided to go out for dinner with 7 other British holidaymakers staying at the resort. They chose a restaurant close by called La Place, which was only 2 minutes away from their apartment. The group sat outside at the terrace and ordered some food. Despite the restaurant being full, there were no waiters serving the customers. Instead, they had to get up and serve themselves buffet style. After ordering their drinks and food, the group ate in silence for a while. It wasn't very fun, and they thought that maybe next time they'd choose a different restaurant. At around 8 p.m., Kate offered to go back to the apartment to feed Madeleine. She asked her husband if he wanted to come with her, but he said that he'd stay at the table with the others for just a few more minutes. Kate left the group and made her way over to the apartment. The first thing she noticed was that the patio door was wide open. She closed it behind her and walked into the living room. The children were nowhere to be seen. At first, she assumed that Jerry had gone to check on them and pick them up from the pool without telling her. But when she didn't see him in the kitchen, she began to panic. She quickly checked both of the bedrooms and then ran out to the balcony. That's when she saw that the pool was empty. The sliding door to the pool area was also open. She could not see Maddie anywhere. She ran back into the apartment and called for her husband. He rushed over to the living room and was shocked to find Kate in tears. He immediately ran out to the balcony and saw that the pool was empty. He couldn't believe that Maddie could have managed to climb over the low railing, especially since she was wearing her pajamas and it was pitch black. At exactly 9:06 p.m., Kate called emergency services and reported her daughter missing. By 9:15 p.m., the entire resort was alerted that a little girl had gone missing and they should keep an eye out for her. At 9:30 p.m., the police arrived at the apartment. When they asked Kate and Jerry how long they'd been gone for, they said that they'd been out for about 10 minutes. However, the police later discovered that they'd actually been gone for an hour. They believed that Kate and Jerry had somehow misplaced their daughter somewhere within the resort and that she'd be found soon enough. Because of this, they didn't launch a full-scale investigation right away. Meanwhile, distraught parents began going door to door looking for their daughter. They were desperate to get her back and protect her, from whatever danger she may have been in. Unfortunately, nobody had seen her. On May, a massive search effort was organized. Over 50 officers and volunteers spent the entire day combing through the scrubland near the holiday complex. They even brought in sniffer dogs, but there was still no sign of Maddie. Authorities were beginning to think that she may have been kidnapped, but there was absolutely no evidence to back this up. By May, the investigation had expanded. Police were searching several kilometers around the coast and even checking every single car that entered the country. As the days passed and there were still no signs of Maddie, the McCann story started to unravel. One of the women who was dining with them that night said that she clearly remembered seeing Kate at their table just moments before she went to check on her daughter. This meant that Kate and Jerry had lied about being gone for only 10 minutes. This revelation forced the couple to retell the story of that evening once again, only this time it was more accurate. It seems as though Kate and Jerry were trying to protect each other. They probably didn't want to admit that they'd left their 3-year-old daughter alone in an apartment full of strangers. Leaving your kid alone is never a good idea, but leaving a 3-year-old alone in an apartment full of strangers is absolutely unacceptable. To add to that, they had previously been reported to local authorities for leaving the kids alone on multiple occasions. Despite their shortcomings as parents, the police still did everything they could to find their daughter. They set up a task force consisting of over 50 people and followed up on hundreds of sightings. They even put together a composite sketch of a man who had been seen acting suspiciously around the McCann's apartment. As weeks turned into months and there were still no signs of Maddie, the police began to lose hope. Many people criticized them for not doing enough to find the missing girl, but the truth is that they did everything that they could. There was simply no trace of Maddie anywhere. In September 2007, the investigation went cold, and the case file was closed. But this wasn't the end of the story. After Maddie disappeared, her parents dedicated their lives to finding her. They refused to accept that she was dead, even though the police had given up. Kate and Jerry founded the Find Maddie campaign and worked tirelessly to keep their daughter's face in the public eye. They hired private investigators and put up a reward of £50,000 for any information leading to their daughter's whereabouts. In 2013, after 6 long years, the case was reopened. This was due to new evidence that had come to light. An unnamed British man had contacted the police claiming that he'd seen Maddie at an apartment in Portugal shortly after she disappeared. Unfortunately, this tip turned out to be false. Since then, there have been numerous sightings of Maddie all around the world, but none of them have been confirmed. The McCanns continue to hold on to hope that their daughter is still out there somewhere and they will find her one day. However, the longer time goes on, the more likely it is that she's really gone. It's important to remember that Maddie was only a 3-year-old child when she went missing. She wouldn't have known how to take care of herself and would have been scared and confused. Whoever took her must have seemed like a nice person to her so that she would go with them. We don't know whether or not she's still alive today, but we do know that whoever did this to her deserves the death penalty. So, what really happened to Maddie? We may never know the truth, but there are so many theories out there. Perhaps she was taken by a stranger while playing by the pool. Maybe she wandered off on her own and is living somewhere completely unaware that her biological parents are looking for her. It's also possible that she was kidnapped by someone that the family knew. Who knows? All we can do is hope that she's out there somewhere and that someday soon she'll be reunited with her parents. What do you think happened to Maddie McCann? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.